Subscribe to Suicide Studios if you want more videos like this. We don't just tell you history, we bring it to life with music that pulls you in and a love for the art you won't find anywhere else. Rome, June 22, 1633. Inside the convent of Santa Maria sopra Minerva, the air smelled like candle wax and old stone. It was the kind of quiet you only find in a room where the men in charge have the power to burn you alive. In the middle of that room knelt the most dangerous mind in Europe. His hand rested on a Bible. His voice did not shake. He swore, out loud, that the earth stood still. That was strange. This man had spent 40 years proving the opposite. He had built his own telescope. He had collected the data. He had done the math. And now he was kneeling in front of men who had none of that, telling them they were right. The church thought they had won. They believed they had broken him, silenced him, forced the greatest scientific mind of the Renaissance to kneel down and lie. But there was one thing they didn't know. One thing they couldn't have known. That very afternoon, he went home. And he kept writing. The Pope had the power to lock a man behind walls. But he had no idea what to do with an idea. Section 1 ***. Pisa, 1564. A city known for its leaning tower and its stiff, old-fashioned ways. It was not the kind of place you'd expect to raise a heretic. Galileo's father, Vincenzo Galilei, made his living playing the lute. He traveled a lot and never had much money. Think of him as the original freelancer, always chasing the next gig. His mother, Giulia Ammannati, came from a merchant family with a good name. She brought status into the house. Her husband kept spending it. The family had strong ties to the church. This is the funny part. The same man who would one day embarrass the Pope grew up with the Pope's own secretary sitting on his family tree. Nobody plans for that kind of twist. Young Galileo's education was strict. Catholic. Classical. It was the exact kind of training meant to build an obedient, proper professional. His father even sent him to study at a Benedictine abbey. Surrounded by monks and prayer, Galileo thought, just for a while, that he might become one himself. Then the family had a better idea. Medicine. It was a smart, steady, profitable career. His parents sent him off to the University of Pisa to study it. It was completely wrong for him. He lasted a few years before he walked away from it for good. Nobody in his family saw it coming. The Two Chief World Systems, published in 1632, is the book where Galileo named the church's spokesman, Simplicio, and then expressed surprise when the Pope took it personally. The book used a dialogue format to hide his true goal. He had 3 characters talk, and it was obvious that the hero, Salviati, won every argument, while Simplicio lost every one. Pope Urban VIII was furious. He had once been Galileo's protector, but now he saw himself mocked as the simple-minded defender of a dead view of the universe. The trial of 1633 brought the full weight of the church down on the aging scientist. He faced charges of heresy and the real threat of torture. The church demanded he get on his knees and take back everything he had written. He did exactly that. He recanted completely, without any sign of hesitation. The church thought they had won, but they did not understand his mind. Giving in was just a smart move for a man who still had more books to write. Once he was sent to house arrest in Arcetri, he immediately began work on his discourses and mathematical demonstrations. This was his greatest scientific work, and he managed to smuggle it to the Dutch Republic to be printed. The Inquisition got his public words, but they never got his real work. ####. Galileo Galilei died on January 8, 1642, in Arcetri, virtually blind and under house arrest, in a country that had spent 9 years trying to make the world forget him, and had failed completely. The Pope even blocked him from being buried in the main church, forcing his family to tuck him away in a side corridor like an afterthought. It did not matter. His books crossed the Alps and were printed in Amsterdam. They were translated into English and spread across a continent that the church could not control. By 1687, Isaac Newton was using Galileo's foundation to write the Principia, perhaps the most important book of the scientific revolution. Later, giants like Einstein and Hawking called him the father of modern science. The church's retreat was long and slow. They finally lifted the ban on his books in the 18th century, and by the 20th century, the list of forbidden books was abolished. Then, in 1992, Pope John Paul II formally admitted that the Church had been wrong about Galileo. It only took 359 years. You can still visit that room in the convent of Santa Maria sopra Minerva today. The church that forced Galileo onto his knees in that room now agrees with everything he said. The man they tried to silence is taught to every child on earth, and the earth, as it was always going to, kept moving. The Pope had the power to lock up a man. He had no idea what to do with an idea. Turns out, either did the next 359 years of popes after him. Subscribe to Suicide Studios if you want more videos like this. We don't just tell you history, we bring it to life with music that pulls you in and a love for the art you won't find anywhere else. To understand why Galileo's telescope scared so many powerful people, you first need to understand what the church was actually selling, and how badly a moving earth would wreck the whole business. For over 1,000 years, almost everyone believed the earth sat still at the center of the universe. The sun, the moon, the planets, and the stars all circled around it in perfect order. This wasn't just a scientific idea. It was the backbone of an entire civilization. Kings, priests, and scholars had built their whole picture of the world on it. This idea came from the ancient Greeks. Thinkers like Ptolemy and Aristotle described a universe made of perfect, unmoving circles, with Earth locked in the center. For 1,000 years, almost nobody seriously argued with them. Then, in 1543, a Polish churchman named Copernicus dropped a bomb. He said the Earth was not the center of anything. It moved. It circled the sun. He published this idea and then died shortly after, which meant nobody could arrest him for it. But the idea didn't die with him. A new wave of thinkers picked it up and kept pushing. Tycho Brahe, Johannes Kepler, John Dee. Each one added more evidence, more math, more pressure on the old model. The church wasn't panicking yet. Not fully. But there was a growing, uneasy feeling. If the earth really moved, then the whole stage they believed God had built made no sense anymore. The set design of the universe was falling apart. And into this exact moment, into this powder keg, walked a man from Pisa. He had a telescope. He had a gift for mathematics. And he had almost no instinct at all for self-preservation. In 1592, the University of Padua offered Galileo a full teaching job in mathematics. He said yes so fast that the ink on the contract barely had time to dry before he was already packing his bags. He later called the next 18 years the happiest of his life. Think about that for a second. It tells you everything about the years that came after. For the first time, he had real money. He gave private lessons. He sold scientific tools he invented himself, including a geometric compass that sold well enough to be one of the first real products of his career. Money meant freedom, and freedom meant time to think. His personal life was a different story. He fell into a relationship with a woman named Marina Gamba. They never married. They had 3 children together, but he never officially claimed them as his own. It's a strange picture. Here was a man who used strict, careful logic in his science, but let his personal life run wild and messy. Padua sat inside the Venetian Republic, and Venice was one of the few places in Italy where the church's power had real limits. That mattered. It gave Galileo room to think and speak more freely than almost anywhere else in the country. In 1604, a bright new star suddenly appeared in the sky. In 1604, a bright new star suddenly appeared in the sky. 000 in 1614, a Dominican friar named Lorini got his hands on a copy. He sent it straight to the cardinal in charge of banned books. Think of it like someone screenshotting your private messages and forwarding them straight to your boss. By 1616, Galileo was summoned to Rome. Cardinal Bellarmino questioned him directly. At the end of it, Galileo received a clear, formal warning: stop defending the idea that the Earth moves around the Sun. So what did Galileo do? He published a new work called The Discourse on the Tides. In it, he argued that the ocean tides were proof that the Earth moves. He published this while the ink on his official warning was barely dry. Then, in 1623, he released the Essayer. It was his big statement on how science should actually work, laid out with sharp wit and confidence. He'd learned his lesson about being careless, so this time he was more careful about how his words got out into the world, protecting himself with layers of distance between his name and the sharpest attacks. A reasonable person, after a direct warning from the Roman Inquisition, would have quietly backed off. Galileo was many things. Reasonable was not reliably one of them. Hashtag. Galileo spent his career arguing that evidence must override assumption. And then spent his personal life making exceptions. He treated his own life with the same cold, sharp calculation he applied to his experiments. He had 3 children with Marina Gamba, but he refused to marry her. He labeled his own children bastards, not because he lacked affection, but because Marina's social standing did not fit the professional life he was building. He later sent his 2 daughters, Virginia and Livia, to a convent while they were still young. Virginia became Sister Maria Celeste and stayed close to him through letters, but Livia, by most accounts, never forgave him for the abandonment. Even in his work, his brilliant mind had dark corners. His strongest argument for the Earth moving around the Sun was his theory on tides. It was wrong. He ignored the Moon's role in pulling the tides, even when other scientists tried to show him the truth. He was a man who built his entire life on questioning old ideas, yet he kept his own set of beliefs that he refused to change. This was the deepest contradiction of his. Thank you for staying with us during this one-of-a-kind experience. Don't forget to push that subscribe button so you will be notified when new video is out.